What's going on, Founder University? We have a personal favorite topic and episode for me today, covering outbound sales. I have the CEO and founder of SaaSLeadFlow, which is an outbound sales agency, on the call today, Mike. He walks us through strategies in terms of sourcing leads and sending good subject lines and sending good copy emails and really just converting cold emails into qualified leads and demos. Cold email is a superpower for a business. It can help you generate huge pipeline, but is getting harder and harder and harder every single day to stand out from the pack. So Mike walks us through best practices, strategies, and actually shows tangible results and templates that you can use in your own business. So I hope you enjoy the episode today. If you put this into practice, you will make more money. So I highly recommend listening and even watching to the end as he summarizes it very simply for everyone. So enjoy the episode. Speak soon. Mike, thanks for jumping on. Good to be reconnected. It's been a while since we last spoke.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Thanks for having me. Love the Founder University channel you're starting and the mission that you guys are running at Talently. So happy to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting to catch up. I think your business has grown a lot since we spoke last, and a couple of things that I wanted to touch base on, and I'll give some context to any of the listeners. But Mike is the co-founder, or maybe sole founder and CEO of SaaSLeadFlow, which is a B2B sales agency, so helping SaaS companies, for the most part, really fill up their pipeline and run an effective sales process so they don't need to figure it out from the ground up. So you can sort of fill in the blanks if I missed anything there, but I'm excited to pick your brain because personally for me as a founder, I get DM'd all the time from different agencies, marketing agencies, sales agencies, and stuff like that to offer their services. And
sure,
they sort of seem a dime a dozen. Some of them seem a little shady. Some of them seem too good to be true, but I'd rather get the information from the source itself, as this is something that I'm interested in and always looking to get better from an outbound perspective within my business. But hopefully some listeners can take some nuggets of information as well. And sales is hard. So if you can share ideas here and there, strategies that have worked for you and your clients, I think that could be beneficial to myself selfishly, but hopefully to business owners and other people who are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to chop it up and talk about how to sell yourself as a founder. You know, that's usually who I'm working with, but also how to, basically go hunt, because that's what you have to do in 2025. It's not enough to just sit there and wait for leads to come in. You got to go hunt for them.
Yeah, 100%. Little sidebar before we even jump into it. I see this big ass calendar on your wall. Are you a Jesse Itzler guy? You planning a year in advance? Like what's the deal there?
Yeah, that's cool. You can see it. Yeah, I am a Jesse Itzler fan, and Sarah Blakely, I know that's his wife. Yeah, I was listening to one of her podcasts yesterday. Dude, I travel so much that I need it. So like I have stuff circled all the way through mid-November on the calendar already,
Really?
So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Have you always been a planner kind of guy, getting ahead of time, or is this you've been listening to too many podcasts and Huberman podcasts and stuff like that, and you're getting into it, or what's your sort of personality take on it?
Oh no, I mean, since I was a kid, I've been incredible. Like always had a planner. Everything was scripted. I mean, I've got my hours written out here on my, day-to-day to-do list. So I've always been that way.
Too funny. I think it's great. I don't know. I listen to a ton of business podcasts, and there's so many people talking about their morning routines and their supplements and their planning. And I don't blend with that at all. Like I'm not a planner. I'm not an organizer. I'm like just a doer, and I just like doing things and being pretty sporadic with my time. But it makes me think maybe I need to spend more time on that. But what from your side of it, like what do you find are the biggest benefits in terms of sort of planning or morning routines and stuff like that? There's just so much information on whatever TikTok and Instagram of these business influencers and what they do. I think most of it is bullshit. But for you personally, like what do you find to help you be most effective?
Yeah, well, I want to plug like one, you should do what's authentic to you, right? If planning isn't authentic to you and it doesn't give you energy, then don't do it. That's the most important part. But for me, like I make so many decisions every day as a business owner that if I can remove decision fatigue out of simple mundane things like what I'm going to have for breakfast and how I'm going to get my protein for the day, or the travel, someone's like, what are you doing May 10th? And I just have to look at my wall. That's a little easier for me. So that's how my brain works. It likes to have structure, system, and the less amount of decisions I have to make every day, the better.
There you go. Don't tell me you're a cold plunge guy also.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Red light therapy?
I haven't done too much of that, but man, I love heat exposure, cold exposure. So yeah, I do that
Oh
stuff for
my God,
sure.
you guys are psychos. I got a cold plunge. I've done it a few times. Like this is absolute torture. Sauna and steams and stuff I can
Yeah,
get behind. They're
right.
enjoyable. Cold plunge count me out.
Oh no. See, I moved to Phoenix, so like I can the heat is always here. So it's
Yeah.
nice to have a little bit of cold exposure, but I don't, I know you live in Canada, so like I wouldn't choose to go into cold plunge when it's cold out either.
Yeah, exactly. You think as a Canadian I'd get used to it by now, but I guess not. But
No.
no, that's great to hear. And I know it works for some people, but I think it's a good point you bring up is like you got to be true to yourself and not force it. And so much information
Yeah.
online nowadays is like you don't need to be
Yeah.
anyone else, just sort of be what you want to be. And yeah, Jesse, I'm a big fan of Jesse Itzler as well. And I think he's just an inspiration to like do cool shit and just figure it out on the fly. Like he's just a gamer. He just knows how to
Yeah.
get things done. And yeah, he's pretty inspirational.
I mean, we're all just figuring it out one day at a time, right? Like my sister recently, she's kind of figuring out what she's doing with her career, and it's like, I don't know, I don't have anything figured out. I'm like, nobody does. We're just figuring it out every day, making
Yeah.
it up. But you got to get in the game. You got to be in the arena. Otherwise, you're just sitting there waiting for something to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think when I was an employee, I had the same mindset. It's like I thought people who run businesses or my parents or whatever had shit figured out and they knew exactly what they were doing and business owners knew how to operate. But everyone's just like a small step ahead of each other and no one knows what that next step's going to be and you just have to do it. But yeah, business isn't that complicated or intimidating. It's like provide a product, a service or whatever that you can produce for less than what you need to sell it for and just do it over and over and over again. And we're both in the service industry, so a little bit different than products and stuff like that. But business is relatively simple when you boil it down to the basics.
And I want to plug you, Dan, and Talently because you mentioned like sometimes people are just one little step ahead, right? When we met, we had a conversation April or May of 24, and it was a very candid conversation. I was trying to figure out how to staff my team properly. I had a bunch of freelancers and it wasn't working. I called you. You're like, dude, I've built tech companies all over the world. The best talent is in South Africa. That's the business I run. We're going to go find South African talent for you. And, I couldn't afford you at the time, but I did. I'm a scrappy guy, so I did my own research, and now I'm employing, I don't know, seven or eight South Africans on the team who are rock stars, very well educated, speak well, do great work. And so I think what you're doing at Talently to staff that for, North American firms is absolutely critical for, having talent, but that also can fit the bill.
Yeah, 100%. I'm happy to hear that. It puts a smile on my face because we were saying before, and I think when we initially spoke, is like South Africa is an extremely overlooked talent pool because historically, especially for North American businesses, like when you use the word offshore, you just think cheap. And cheap, you usually think to like Pakistan or India, Philippines, and stuff like that, which is true, and they're great in certain roles. But nowadays in business, since remote is obviously very common, you're not just looking for paper pushers, like you're looking for knowledge workers. And for a knowledge worker, you need a different set of skills. And South Africa provides that. It is a slight premium compared to those cheaper Asian markets. But yeah, anyone who's bringing the light on South African talent is good in my book. So happy to hear that the team's been good to you and scaling effectively. So the more people who have exposure to South African talent, the better. But this business and this idea wouldn't work in 2020 or 2015. Like the world changes quickly and you have to be able to evolve with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to touch on something because I've hired from all of the markets that you've mentioned, and what you told me specifically, and now I know to be true, is for sales, marketing, finance type roles. South Africa has phenomenal talent, and it might be more of a premium than what you're hearing online from some influencers like Nick Huber on hiring in the Philippines for $5 an hour, which is okay. It's going to be
Yeah.
a little more expensive than that. But at the end of the day, you're going to get really high quality talent that can speak well and do great work.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm proud that I had that influence on you, but more importantly, you executed and got the team going, which is super exciting. But I guess that's a good transition to the business side of it. So, one thing I wanted to bring up front and full transparency to you is like I get DM'd all the time from people in your space, these B2B sales agencies, where whether they're locally or North America or the UK or Pakistan or whatever, saying, hey, can I book you 10 qualified meetings a month? I'll give you a free trial or this, or don't pay until you get the meetings booked or whatever it may be. And
Yeah.
Honestly, sometimes it feels either too good to be true or a little bit of a scam, and you really don't know how to trust these people. And I know you and your business and the results you've been able to drive. Like, what is your take in the industry? Why do I have that feeling in my gut when people reach out to me and offer these services?
Yeah, well, there's a few things. One, like Instantly and SmartLead has democratized how easy it is to reach out to thousands of people via email. So any 18-year-old with a laptop can set up a cold email system, however they're doing it, and build a list and email on your behalf. Are they going to understand the business mechanics? Are they going to be able to qualify a lead? That is still to be told. You know, I started sending mass email with a SaaS in 2016, 2017. And the game has changed tremendously. Changes every week almost still. So I think to answer your question, the reason why you get reached out so much is because anybody with a laptop anywhere in the world can do lead generation, right? Can they do it well? That's to be told. And, you know, all the sales calls I'm on, they ask for case studies, right? Hey, can you prove to me that you've been able to, you know, find someone that is looking to hire top talent and, you know, would be willing to have my recruiting agency at Talently on the line, right?
Yeah.
That's the more important thing. And I can definitely show you an example of it was a SaaS. It's a little different than what you did, but I've helped recruitment agencies, recruitment softwares find a lot of talent with my cold email campaigns, which is a good example. But like the ones where people reach out and they're like, hey, I've got 10 people right now who want your services. Can I send them over? I crack up. I'm like, dude, if you had that, you would have already monetized those leads.
Yeah.
Like that's just a sales pitch. So.
Yeah, exactly. If you had that sort of lead flow, you'd do it for yourself instead of do it for other businesses because it's more beneficial. It's funny. You're saying 2016 cold email, and definitely has changed. It reminded me of just like a quick story. Like when I started in sales, I worked for an ed tech company called Top Hat here in Toronto, which we would sell to professors and universities and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I started maybe 2014, 15 or something like that. I was there. And to your point, it wasn't common practice to like mass email and stuff like that. We didn't have the tools to do it. And I remember this so vividly. And if any of my buddies who are from Top Hat remember this as well, when we used to do it, we used to use a platform that was a plugin for Gmail called Mail Merge. I don't know if you've heard of it before.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't used it.
Yeah, it was insane. Like back in the day, this was wild. So essentially what we would do is like back in the day, people weren't used to getting emails, especially professors. We were selling it to professors, and MailMerge was essentially a spreadsheet to email platform where we would go and manually scrape professor information off of university websites. So their name, their courses, their class size, their email address and stuff like that. We put it into a spreadsheet and we would press send, and it would send it to every single professor at a university saying, hey, we're coming to campus next week. Would love to meet with you in person and tell you about Top Hat. And I remember this so vividly. We would sit there, buddies and I, we'd sit there, we'd put the mail merge in, we'd click send, we'd go get a coffee, and then come back and our inboxes would be filled with responses. And those days were great. And that was the gravy train. And I don't even know if the founders of the company knew that we were doing that. But that was because mailboxes weren't full then. Data wasn't readily available. Mass emailing wasn't readily available. And now, as you said, Apollo, Smartly, all these guys, there's a million platforms out there, and you really need to be strategic and understand business to be able to stand out from the pack and provide true value or a unique approach. So yeah, I'm excited to get your sort of tips and tricks of like how you can take that unique approach and stand out in an inbox or stand out on a DM or whatever it may be, because it's getting harder and harder every day.
Yeah, it is. And you know, I think the really affirmation, if like the question is like, how do you stand out in an inbox? It's got to be short, punchy, and a strong call to action that's closed loop. Meaning like, you know, would you be interested in taking a look at this? Yes or no? Not the how can I help you? Or is it, you know, stuff like that. Open-ended questions don't get replies. So you have to be really short and punchy to the point. And I think the biggest change in 2025 is like nobody's giving up their calendar for some stranger who's sending an email into their inbox. Rarely. Yeah. So you have to add value. And I really like to send lead magnets, one-pagers. Can I send you an example list of who we'd be reaching out to on your behalf? Stuff like that, where like I'm building proof that I can add value to your business, not just another guy saying, can I book you 10 meetings this month?
Yeah, that's I've always been tinkering with the idea of lead magnets, and I see it all the time. And I guess just for the listeners, can you walk through like what a lead magnet is, or even if you have like a specific example of one that you've created or used that's been successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to be really practical. So like if I were to run a lead magnet for you, Dan, it would be, hey, I saw you have a position open for a sales executive. I actually have a few, ready to go candidates. Could I send you over the resumes? Right? Like that's a lead magnet in my opinion, because you've created interest. Like you're going to go sift through this whole thing. It's like, I already have 3 candidates ready to interview, or maybe can I send you their one-way interview? Right? Because then it's a little different than the resume. So a lead magnet is any sort of value add, basically piece of information that you can give to them. We'll send a 1-pager that explains the program. My favorite one I did last year was I interviewed like 30 to 50 B2B sales executives, from like CEO founders all the way through like director of sales. And I understood what are they doing in outbound that's working. And then I built a market research report that was comprehensive but punchy on like, here's the 2 things you need to do to build a successful sales pipeline in 2024. And then I said, hey, I've summarized it. Can I send you the results? And I got a bunch of people who were like, yes. And then there was 2 actionable things out of it. And I think we're doing both these things, Stan. It's 1, you need a personal brand. So you're talking about content online. And 2, you need to have a scalable outbound system. So you're reaching out to potential customers at scale. You need both those things to be successful. And that's an example of some lead magnets for Talently, for my business, and kind of how we go about sending them out.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So I guess in general, like building out some sort of free value for people to have right up front and just get them interested. Because you see it all the time, and I'm an avid LinkedIn content user, and you see it all the time on LinkedIn where people are like, hey, I did this so-and-so, comment playbook below, or comment send, and I'll send you the resource. And I think to the point before, like if you're true to your brand and what you're actually providing, and I recently did this with like university kids. I lectured at a class, and I put together like a playbook to help them get hired. And there's like no benefit for me in my business. Like I'm not hiring or looking to work with university kids, but it was a great way for them to be able to get a resource and hopefully help them get jobs. But it takes work and effort to build them. Like it doesn't happen overnight.
They're definitely very time consuming, for sure. But I think it's interesting that you did that. I love how you just add value to people like that, right? Like, hey, I'm going to go speak, build this whole, how to get a job. And I'm sure you're just doing that because you like to help people. And I think that's like the crux of what you're doing and really being a business owner, right? You have to add value to others and not really expect anything in return, and hope it comes back some way.
Yeah, 100%. And I see it all the time. And it's indirect. I know deep down, like if you do good things for people, like they'll come back to you. In what way it's going to come back, I don't really know. But no, it'll be interesting to hear and see how these things pan out in the long run. But it's fun to do interesting things and connect with other people. Like you never know when it's going to come back. Sort of going to the business side, we touched on it earlier, which I wanted to speak about is, and what we'll go into, and I want you to actually show and like walk us through one of these funnels and structures that you have. But just from a high level, like you said, from an email perspective, like short, punchy, and a closed-ended call to action. That's from a body perspective, which I think is great. Other facets to outbound, just so you can give like Cole's notes of it, is like that's the body in the email is like short, punchy, and close-ended loop. From a subject line perspective, like what do you find is best practice? And then I'd love to hear your side from like a prospecting perspective, a list building perspective, what's best practice?
Sure.
Because to me, those are like the 3 most important factors is like who are you contacting, how are you getting them to open the email, and then what are you saying in the actual email? And maybe I'm missing something because you're the expert in the space, but like I'd love to get your section on subject lines and your section on lead building as well.
Yeah. So maybe it would be helpful for me to share kind of how I think about it from like, start to close. I know that was kind of one thing you're like, Mike, come on, bring some visuals for my people so I can share it. And then we can jump into like the micro part, which I think subject line is definitely like a critical part of the copy.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen here and let me know when you can see my Notion.
Yeah, it's up and running.
Okay, cool. So like when I'm thinking about building an outbound engine meaning something that can reach out to customers at scale on your behalf, the most important thing is like, who are you targeting, which we usually call an onboarding form, right? Like what's your ideal customer profile? And I can scroll down a little bit so we define what that is. So it's your job title, the revenue of that company, headcount, industry, and what are the pain points of that specific ideal customer profile, right? When we know who that is, we're in business. If you can't tell me that on a sales call, I'm not going to work with you, because like we're just going to be fishing, and there's no point in fishing with no bait. So once we get that, we immediately build out cold email infrastructure. I like to do a mix of Google and Microsoft inboxes. I use Instantly as my sending tool, and it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get all that set up and warmed up, ready to go.
Yeah.
Once we do that, we start building those lead lists, which is, I think, the next step of what you're curious about. So we've defined who our ICP is. I'll go to Apollo. I use Prospeo, use a Sales Navigator on LinkedIn, and we'll build those lead lists. Over time, we have some really cool scraping tools, and we do triple verification to make sure that the emails are valid. And then we get to the copy, which is what you were asking about. So it's subject line, and then we talked about, short, punchy with a quick call to action. The subject lines, I mean, there's really not a huge, it's more of an art than a science, but like it should be short, probably should have their name or their company name in it, and some sort of intriguing part to get them to open it. Yeah. Everybody likes the quick question, Dan.
Statistically, what's average, what's good? Like, what's the barometer of success when it comes to open rates?
Yeah, so I don't recommend tracking open rates anymore, because it adds an HTML tag in your email, which can get flagged as spam. But when we were tracking up until about 16 months ago, greater than 50% was important. If it was under that, you're probably not ending up in the main inbox.
Really? 50%?
So, yeah. If it's under 50%, you're not ending up in the main inbox. You're going into spam.
Yeah.
And like, quick question for Dan. Mike/Dan.
Yeah.
Dan, did you see this? Those are great subject lines.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. First of all, I didn't even know about the HTML tracking, creating a spam issue. And I've probably seen that recently as we use Apollo. And Apollo doesn't have like an open rate column anymore in their sequence section. It's just reply rate. So I guess everyone's sort of caught up to that, and it's creating a spam issue that people are trying to get away from.
Yeah, exactly. If I use a Google inbox, they added the tag. It would have been like the beginning of 24, mid to 24, when it would come in. Be like, there's something suspicious in this email. Do you want to report it as spam? It was right at the top of the email, and you looked at it, and it was just like 6 lines of text. But it was because it had open rate tracking HTML code in it that they flagged.
True. That's interesting. And that's the thing, is like, once you send emails, you don't know where it's ending up, and it's sort of a black hole. And if they reply, if you see an open tag, then they know, but you don't know what happens to the rest of them, whether they get spammed automatically or tagged, and tagged spam is not good for anybody.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the infrastructure and the changes in the last 6 months, Dan, have been insane. It keeps me up at night. So you have to have somebody who knows what they're doing, who knows how to check inbox placement tests. There's a bunch of tools people are developing to mask your domains, crazy technical stuff that I've had to stay on top of because it's my business.
Yeah, that's interesting. And is it like a cat and mouse game? Like, is there always things that are happening and changing and getting better? Or is like everyone's trying to crack down and clean up inboxes? Because a lot of people I've heard is like, I don't even check emails anymore, or like it's just my inbox is permanently full because I'm just getting messages for everything. Me personally, my inbox is like, I'm a zero inbox guy. I never have anything sitting in there because I tag everything as unsubscribe if it's junk, and then everything else is business oriented. So I don't have that problem, but it seems like a lot of people are saying like, hey, emails just become a junk folder for me. There's nothing of value in there.
I haven't heard that too much. I will say people who have Microsoft inboxes, that's been the biggest thing. They've cracked down on cold email at scale, where their spam folder is full now, because anybody who's trying to send into a Microsoft inbox, if you don't, it has to be like less than 50 characters, less than 50 words, has to have spin tax, and you have to have basically a Microsoft IP. Otherwise, they're not going to accept it. So the game is changing so fast, Dan, and you got to really be in the trenches.
That's crazy. Yeah. So it's now I'm just learning for myself. And in terms of like, does volume play a part? It's like how many emails you send a day? Like what's best practices to make sure you don't get flagged?
Yeah, you don't want to send now more than like 10 to 15 emails out of an individual inbox. And so the Microsoft inboxes, they're capping it at 2, like keeping it at like 2. Yeah. Yeah.
How does that even work? Because I send 100 emails a day, but they're all to clients or employees or whatever, different things. Like, how does that even work?
Right.
How does it differentiate what's cold outbound and what's actual like work related emails?
Yeah, I mean, you're a trusted sender with those 100 people, right? They've emailed you, you've emailed them back, but
Yeah.
they can tell when it's first time in the inbox. And they've even, what I've been reading is that they can even tell based on the copy if it's sales language, and that's
Yeah.
contributing to it too. So,
Crazy.
yeah, it's a big headache that I've spent the last 3 or 4 months like chasing my tail on. But
Yeah.
we're getting results with Microsoft inboxes again. Google always crushes, so it's going.
Yeah, that's crazy. So so those are some of the things like subject lines and things like that. From a reply rate perspective, like again, what's industry average? Like what are you guys targeting? What do you want to hit?
Yeah, so it should be above 1%. Otherwise, you're going to spam. I try to get 3 to 5%, and then I'd like at least 20% of those to be positive replies. So that way you're generating leads. So like the best campaign I ever ran had overall a 2% positive reply rate, which
Yeah.
was pretty crazy. Out of 100 emails, 2 people would be interested in the service.
Yeah.
But like when we're talking, what I do for my clients, I'm sending 30 to 50,000 emails a month, which is small for some of the big agencies. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're looking like 3 to 5% reply rate. So what's some napkin math on that? Let's go 50,000 times 0.05, like maybe 2,500 replies
Yeah.
across, with a portfolio, and then 500 of them would be leads.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, it's hard. And like we run campaigns, so we run on a smaller scale. Like I use Apollo and we do targeted campaigns, but we try to do very unique. Like we've had campaigns with 25% reply rates and stuff like that.
Nice.
But they're very unique. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you said there's one of your campaigns is super successful. Like what's the thought process of strategy? And I'll share my one because I think I'm a sales guy through and through. Like I always try to find creative ways to get in front of people and build campaigns. But the way that I think about that, and tell me if this resonates with you, is like the question I constantly ask myself is like my core service, and Talently's core service is helping companies hire incredible talent in South Africa. And the question I ask myself, which I think is a good practice for myself and hopefully for others, is like keep on asking yourself the question is like, who would be most likely to hire people in South Africa? And just keep on asking that question and keep on asking that question. And eventually you'll come up with different ideas. And the one campaign that I alluded to that had 20, I think it was like 22 or 25% reply rate. I'll have to pull it up right now so I don't misspeak. Was my theory and my concept was who is going to be most likely to hire people in South Africa? And my idea was I'm sure people who are from South Africa but are currently working or live in other countries would be most likely to hire South Africans. Support your home country. So what we did is sourced and scraped every CEO and founder that was based in Canada, US, and the UK, but graduated from a South African university.
Nice.
And targeted them. Yeah, it was 22.6% reply rate. It was the highest one that we had. And it was just like, how do you put yourself in the buyer's shoes of like, who's going to be interested in this and target them that way, which is very unique. And I don't know if every business can do that, but I'm looking at them now, 22.6%, 12.5%, 14.6%. And we actually ran them individually for each university. So we did it for all the top 10 universities in South Africa. So we ran 10 of them. And some of them work better than others. But I think it's a really good mental practice or whiteboard session of like, who's likely to buy this product and just like spitball a million different ideas and go and try to execute on them.
Yeah. And you nailed one thing that I want to make sure we don't miss is like customer empathy. You were like, hey, if I'm in their shoes, what would make me reply to this email?
Yeah.
And you nailed it. Right.
Yeah. And it's hard to do. It's not going to come to you like first try, but if you can crack that code, like outbound is like a free money machine, right? Like there's no cost per click. There's no PPC that you're paying for. It's just click send and do it. But if you do it right, it can be huge. But I think a lot of people think it's easy, but it's very hard. And the same thing, it's like, I think it's a good thing as a consumer is like when you receive cold emails, try to be conscious of like which ones catch your eyes, which ones don't, and learn from those ones to get better because not every cold email is created equal. And I guess another question for you, like, is your business, correct me if I'm wrong, it's solely email based or are there other outbound channels that you're using to generate leads?
So I do multi-channel. I don't believe in having one fixed channel. So we do cold email, we do cold calling, we do social media outbound, And then the new one is like website visitor identification and outreach.
Yeah.
So we have a script on the website that, hey, you checked out our website, and then we'll reach out to you.
Yeah,
So
it's funny. We had an episode 2 or 3 episodes ago with the co-founder of Vector, which is one of those identification websites, and they provide it for free. So it's a pretty powerful tool. I have it on my website. It's like free leads anytime someone comes in. So that's pretty cool. From a channel side of it, like social channels, do you find like certain social channels better for outbound, or where do you see the best results outside of email?
Best results outside of email is cold calling, because people are afraid to pick up the phone. That kind of how we talked about at the beginning of the episode, where cold email has been democratized, where any 18-year-old with a laptop anywhere in the world can do it. Calling is now actually a specialized sport. If you can call someone, build rapport, and get them to agree to a meeting, like there's a real skill there. I'm still on the phones daily. I can't give it up, but the calling is one of the best channels, I would say. Yeah. Social media is almost as saturated as cold email, but the difference is like, can you add value? Like some of the lead magnet. How many people add you on LinkedIn and like pitch you right away? Pitch slapped. It's like, come on, I don't know you. I don't know who you are.
Not gonna work.
And I'm not going to read this wall of text.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it goes back to that lead magnet. If you create good lead magnets, it can be across all channels, right? Email, social, and stuff like that. True. No, that's super interesting. And cold calling, it's truthfully not something that we do. I started my career cold calling. Like that was how I started in sales. And I think it's a good skill that everyone should try. It's super intimidating and nerve wracking, but once you sort of bite the bullet and get it done, it's very reasonable to do. Sounds really good. So in terms of like actual practice and things that you're doing, like I'd love to, I don't know if you have like a client you can share or specific campaigns, like and we've spoken about some specifics in terms of like body of an email and subjects and stuff like that, but do you have an example of like an actual client or results that you can share and sort of walk us through what that looks like?
Yeah. So would you like to see kind of how I think about the funnel, or do you want to see a real tangible case study? Because I brought both. So
yeah, whichever one you think is going to be most valuable. Maybe both quickly. I don't know. What do you think will be the best from an information perspective?
Let's start with a story and a case study, and then I'll kind of break down visually how I think about the whole funnel from cold to close. So let's do it that way.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll share my screen again, and we'll chop it up on this. So I started working with this amazing tech founder in Romania. It would have been, a year and a half ago probably. And he built this tool called Appistache, which they can, based on your ideal customer, go find people who are talking about your problem and help you find influencers and blogs and networks to basically reach out. And when we started working together, he had the product, didn't have much more. And so we had to literally build a CRM, build a demo system. I mean, this was like really real grassroots B2B sales stuff. And then with that, we were able to start booking about 25 qualified demos a month within about 2 months because we had set up the systems to work. So we built the CRM, we were using Apollo for email, and then we're using LinkedIn to have conversations with his ICP. And so basically from start to finish, there was no lead gen strategy. We just had launched the product to having a robust and well-defined like B2B marketing machine. It really only took a couple steps, Dan. And to break it down is like, 1, you need to know who you're targeting. 2, you need a system to track all of your leads, which is a customer relationship management tool. I believe we used HubSpot. Yeah, it was HubSpot. And then the third is you need to have a scalable system to reach out to these customers, which was through Apollo and LinkedIn. And, it was a pretty small MRR product, but we still managed to build a huge MRR pipeline very, very quickly. So that's kind of from a high level of how we'll come in on an early stage startup and help them build out this process.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And do you have like visuals or run examples of like what the content looked like or the workflows look like or the actual like, text or outbound that people could get inspiration from?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me pull one of those up. I can definitely get my Instantly open and we can show you. And in the meanwhile, while I do that, like I want to make sure that we don't miss this because most businesses aren't ready for cold traffic. And what I mean by that is if you're not ready to like qualify, have a sales process, and like actually understand how to close these businesses, someone booking you 5 to 10 meetings a month or an outbound agency to come in, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for your business until you have this whole funnel built out, this whole process defined.
Yeah.
Because
Do
you'll just
businesses
be
not
chased.
have this? Like, this seems like, in my eyes, like I have a sales background. Like, this is business 101 of like, you have to be able to generate leads. You have to run an effective sales process, close them, and then make sure that you execute on the service or the product you're delivering. Like, this seems like a surprise that anyone can run a business and not have this in place. But I guess you have exposure to a lot of these companies. Like, do people not know how to close deals? Like, is that a common situation you find with companies?
Yeah, I would say much more common than you think, because I work with businesses that are anywhere from like, let's say, 200K ARR to 20 million. And the ones that are closer to 200K ARR don't have a lot of this in place until, they bring in a real sales leader, because the founders want to build products a lot of times. I
Yeah.
work with technical founders. You're a sales founder. You get this. This is table stakes. Technical founders are like, I want to go build the coolest thing that you've ever seen, and everyone's going to come inbound and we're going to love it. So
Yeah.
it
And then
just
they
depends
realize
on who.
that's not the reality of business, is you have to have a process behind it. Yeah, I guess from a technical, and same thing, like if someone asked me to create a product or design a UI, I'd be lost. So I guess if you're a technical founder, then it makes sense that this stuff doesn't exist.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to show you some actual copy that we used, and this was one of my favorite case studies. So I'll go to, it would have been Ideal Traits. So Ideal Traits is a B2B recruitment SaaS. So it's not quite what Talently's doing, because you're providing talent. They
Yeah.
give us a software that helps you find the talent. And they came to me in, it was the end of 2023, and said, hey, we've done trade shows, we've had sales teams, but we've never really been able to do cold email. So we set up a list, and I wrote a copy and tested a bunch of it. And in 7 weeks, we had 156 marketing qualified leads, which are people that said they were hiring and needed software for it. We booked 64 demos, and they added 45,000 in MRR. So it was a pretty crazy,
Those are big numbers.
yeah. And you wanted to see what it looked like. It was as simple as this. And let me know if I need to zoom in for you guys.
Good.
But yeah, so basically it was like, are you hiring? Or it could be, Brian, are you hiring? And then I was like, hey, are you hiring right now? So you got a question. Are already some people that are looking for jobs in your area? And we had variables in here where it could be like, if we knew they were in Texas, it would say Texas. We could even go down to city level. And then here's the hitch, right? It's like a really easy reply to get them hooked in. Just reply hiring, and I'll tell you more about it. We're running a deal for you.
Yeah, I actually like that. I've never seen that, nor do I've ever used it. I like the idea of just reply yes, and I'll send it to you, or something like that. But it's very simple, and I hate it when people send emails saying, "Hey, like, tell me when you're available next week," or like, "Do you want to speak?" or something like that. It's like, "Hey, let's speak on Tuesday. I'm available at 1 or 2 o'clock. Which time works best for you?" Like, just make it super simple. And I've never seen the this action reply hiring or reply playbook or whatever. I usually see it on LinkedIn and social media and stuff like that, but I've never seen it in cold email. But actually, I'm probably going to test that out. I think it's a good idea. Same idea for mine, and me just sort of spitballing with you of like how I could run this to say, hey, I saw you're hiring for virtual assistant.
Yeah.
Just hit reply. I have 3 incredible virtual assistants I'd love for you to check out. Just hit reply yes if you want to see them. I'll send them over to you. And exactly. I think it's 1, unique, but 2, it's like, couldn't be more simple. You don't have to reply back. You don't have to say yes, this and that and find a time. Just all you have to do is type 3 letters, yes, and you'll have it in your inbox. But no, I think it's a very unique way to position it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to remove as much friction as possible. And something that you pointed out, which I don't want us to miss, if you get someone who's interested and you're like, when could we meet? You put it back in their court, they're going to go cold. Yeah. There's 2 options. One, like you said, how does Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern work? That's option 1. Second option, pick up the phone and call them and have a conversation. You can qualify them. You can understand the context. So that way, when the next week you're looking at them on your Zoom screen, you're not like, well, how are you? Where are you from? It's not super cold. Like, they've talked to you. They know who you are, and there's some rapport already.
Yeah, it's funny. We use WhatsApp pretty heavily, where once you start having dialogue with the client via email, the inbox is crazy and really hard for people to get in touch with. But if you have that rapport, truthfully, just add them on WhatsApp and say, hey, it's Dan from Talently. Like, thought it'd be easier to coordinate here. Like, when are you available tomorrow? And again, makes you stand out differently, but another sort of touch point. But don't do that from the beginning or you're screwed. But if you do it sort of later on after you've gained that acceptance or familiarity, then it can be a huge leverage point.
Yeah, no doubt. I love the WhatsApp. That's how you got me onto a call. We got
introduced. Is that what it was?
You texted. You were messaging me on WhatsApp because I was like driving and in transit and doing all this stuff. I'm going to open my WhatsApp right now. I'm pretty sure that was
there
your
you go. That's I guess it works for setting up meetings as well. So that's good to hear. With those, and that sounds pretty good from a return rate. Like, is there a certain like minimum deal size or like minimum ICP that you think people should be targeting, or is this like relevant to every company or every stage of a business? Like, I don't know how you think about it, because I know you said if you don't know your ICP, then probably not the best thing. Are there any other variables where you'd say you shouldn't focus on outbound or you should focus on outbound? Like, what is that tipping point? Because it could be tough with some clients or business owners.
It depends. So there's like the marketing answer. It depends. But like, if your ACV, if your annual contract value is under $1,000, you shouldn't be paying someone else to be doing anything for you, because it's not going to be profitable for a long time. It doesn't matter if it's ads, cold email, like, you need to scrap it out yourself. But if you're over $1,000 annual contract value, you can make it work. I think that's where both ads and cold email start to make sense, but you need to be able to close. That's where that funnel I just showed you, like, you need to have that system set up, because I could book you 10 demos, but if you can only close one of them, then it doesn't matter what channel you're using, you're burning cash.
Yeah, it's true. You have to be able to, you have to know your numbers. They don't have to be perfect, but you have to know them a little bit of like, what's your ACV or what's your whatever LTV or what's your close rate and stuff like that. Because if you're booking 50 meetings and you close one of them, it's not good for anyone. It's not good for the business as well. And yeah, it's tough. I previously was consulting for companies like on the side when I was working as a VP of sales, and I was always like technical founders who don't know how to do sales. They're like, hey, can you help us run this and stuff? And I absolutely hated it, because as a consultant, like, you're not actually doing the work. You're just helping them build structure and strategies and playbooks and stuff like that. But they have to go execute on it, and they can't execute. And they come back and be like, hey, your playbook didn't work. I'm like, okay, send me the call recording. And they didn't do anything you told them to do. So it's tough to see that happen, but everyone has their specialization. Which is just how business works. But from your side of it, and now obviously you're an entrepreneur, you've been an employee before, like, what's your take on being a founder now? Like, do you think there's too many people starting companies? Do you think there's more opportunity than ever? Like, what do you think about sort of the modern day founder and entrepreneur or side of business?
Yeah. I mean, you said something in the green screen room, before this that I liked, like, high tides raise all ships. So I support anybody who is running a small business or trying to do it themselves. And like, to get really personal, Dan, my mom spent 40 years at General Motors to be shown the door. No, thank you. No retirement party. And then she only got to enjoy her last 4 years of life, and she died from cancer. And respectfully, fuck that. Yeah. And so I'm building my business the way I want to because of that. But I respect anybody who likes their 9 to 5, who wants to build something, and I will support everybody. I think the most critical part of entrepreneurship that most people miss is, like, you have to do what you say you will, because your word is pretty much all you have. And people will talk about their experience with you, how you work. But the second thing is, this is mostly mindset. Like, nobody is in charge of their future more than you are as an entrepreneur. Like, you have to do the work. If you don't do it, it won't get done. Yeah. And there's no one else to blame or to look at. So
yeah, it's very true. And I think to your point, it's like, it's not for everybody, but for the people who have that mindset and are willing to give it a go, like, it could be the best thing you've ever done. And it's not easy, and it's super emotional because there's no one else to blame or finger point. Like, you have to get everything done yourself. And the other thing, which I always like to sort of speak about, and we'll wrap up in a little bit here, but I wanted to get your take on it, because you have exposure to a ton of different companies and a ton of different industries. And I always like to hear from other founders that, like, you're running this business right now and obviously trying to grow it and build it or exit it or whatever, hand it off or whatever the situation may be. Are there other sort of business ideas that you're tinkering with or thinking about, or you're like, oh, I wish someone built this, or is there any other business ideas that tickle your fancy? Because I think founders, obviously they had a business idea, or you had a business idea and you ran with it and you pulled the trigger, but I'm sure you have hundreds of other business ideas. Like, there's anything else out there that you're interested in or think there's big opportunity in?
Yeah, I love that question. So there's always the balance between like, is this an opportunity or a distraction? Because
Yeah.
and I'm sure you get this too all the time, as you encounter these amazing businesses and are like, Dan, I love how you do this. Like, could you just come join the team? Like the power of saying no is actually really important when you're building a company. So, and then to answer your question, like, am I always thinking of other things and tinkering? Yes, absolutely. The B2B sales agency has always been a channel for opportunity for me to be in more businesses that I really love. So I have a couple, holdcos, businesses that I'm a part of. I have a piece of that are just clients under the B2B sales agency. And there's a bigger vision there, because I candidly don't love running an agency. I was fighting it for years, but it's a great vehicle to meet people, to work in different industries, and create opportunity. So
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you take this sort of holdco approach, but you're right. It's maybe not a Trojan horse, but it's a way to sort of put your tentacles out there and touch a bunch of different industries and see what works. And if you could take a piece of a few of them and help them grow their top line and get the benefit of their cash flow or whatever it ends up being, then it could be beneficial to everybody to work together. But yeah, there's a lot of shiny red balls to chase, and there's always these trends and ebbs and flow, and everyone sort of gets caught up with them, whether it's like drop shipping or AI now or SaaS back in the day. It's like there's so many opportunities for people who have the balls to go and do it. But there's only so many hours in the day, there's so much effort in the day. And obviously you're focused on building your business. I'm focused on building my business. But to your point, it's like, you don't know where these things are going to go. And I'm not. You're a planner. Maybe you have a 5-year, 10-year plan. Like I have like a 2-week plan, because that's what's in my GCal. But things could change really quickly. I could shut this business down, or I could hire a CEO and let them run it. Like, I really don't know where it's going to go. But I think having that mindset and having those eyes out to other businesses, and that's why I love my business as well, is like I get exposed to e-commerce clients and SaaS clients and service clients and accounting firms and all these different things that we work with. I quickly realized which businesses suck and I don't want to get involved with, but there's other businesses that are like, wow, this is really cool what you guys are doing. It sounds like an incredible business model and strategy that you guys are building out. And not to say that I'm going to get involved with it, but it's just a really easy way to learn. And that's truthfully the reason for this podcast as well, is like the easiest way for me to learn is to speak to other founders, understand what they're doing to help my business, but also have exposure to other industries and companies and things like that.
Totally. Yeah. You're doing it the right way, man. And I love how you point out I have a philosophy. There's 2 ways to learn. You can learn from your own experiences, which is often painful in the form of failure, or you can learn from the experience of others. And how you're doing it with your businesses, you're like staffing and learning what their experience is and seeing, that's a good lesson that I don't have to learn myself.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're going to fail a bunch of times, but if you can avoid a handful of those, then I would definitely recommend it. And I guess on a finishing note, like I'd love for you to just summarize, I don't know, a couple of points. Like if someone is going to leave right now and be like, okay, I'm going to commit to outbound. I'm going to go build something for our company and try to put some effort into it. Like, I don't know, give me 3 like simple bullet points of like, if you do these 3 things or you do 4 things or 2 things or whatever, like you can make outbound work.
The first one, know who your customer is and understand exactly what pain point you're solving for them. 2, get on YouTube, look up, Nick Abraham or Eric Nowalski and watch their YouTube on how to set up email infrastructure. 3, understand what it takes to build a real lead list. And then 4, write copy you would reply to. That's the test, the litmus test. Would I reply to this email? If you wouldn't, don't send it.
Yeah, I love that. No, it's a good, truthfully, the 4th one I think is the most valuable, because a lot of people are just write it and like, oh, this is good. And then you think about yourself as the consumer and you realize that it's actually shit. And you should delete it and reread it again. And I actually like to do this with resumes with our candidates. Is like,
Oh, nice.
Show this to your spouse, show this to your mom, and like, do they get excited about it? Like, does it look good to them? And if they say no, like, go rewrite it and do it
Yeah,
again. Like, there's a really easy ways to test this. Like, send it to yourself, send it to your spouse, send it to someone you know, and they'll give you honest feedback if it's good or not. And if it's bad, just like keep on rewriting. And to that point, like, I think you have to test a shit ton. Like, you have to do A, B, C, M, Z tests. Like, you have to just keep on testing until you find the right copy or the right structure.
totally. That copy I showed you earlier that I hope you go use for hiring the recruitment software. Dude, we tested 12 angles over the first 2 months, and I had like spreadsheets on like most positive reply rates, most reply, like I broke it down, and then we figured out which one worked. We doubled down and just used that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you jumping on and pulling the curtain back on this industry, and hopefully some businesses will see value in this and be able to run with it. But if people want to reach out to you directly, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Mike Blumenthal, and I'm also on X too. Like to talk a little bit more on the low about the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship. But yeah, reach out Mike Blumenthal or Mike at SaaSLeadFlow.com.
There you go. Sounds good. I'll tag you in the show notes and stuff like that. But good catching up, and yeah, appreciate you giving the Coles notes to the outbound sales world.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dan.
Hey, Mike. We'll speak soon.